Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Shruti, for those of you who don't know me. Thank you for coming to see this exhibition. So this is Looking Southwards, the Dakshinachitra vision. This is of craft, art, and cultural heritage. I was going to speak a little bit on the institution, but I think everyone here knows it. So the idea of this exhibition is to draw on the museum's collections, which have not just been craft and traditional art, which are better known, outside, but a surprising number of modern and contemporary artworks as well. But the museum's vision has been one of bringing both together, right? I think the contemporary art part is probably just known to the museum insiders or the few solo exhibitions that you did, some of the retrospectives of the Madras art movement masters. But so the exhibition, I've sort of tried to bring out that interest in preserving, conserving cultural heritage, traditional, art and craft traditions, but alongside contemporary art. So there isn't this kind of difference between high art and, rest. So you will see, so this is between in the two spaces of this gallery, and each space will have a mix of both. And with that very, very quick thing, I think this time I'll begin with this work here and sort of propitiate the deity. So this is actually it's a remarkable work, and I think it is, 20th century, but probably the early, anywhere from maybe 40s to 50s, 1900s. So this is, a carved like a box shrine that travels, and but in the curatorial painting style, so which of course originated in Telangana, now had spread Andhra wide, but now is fairly concentrated in Telangana. And so in this case is a deity, and if you've seen it exists in many parts of India. But in Gujarat in particular, so you have the Kavar tradition where you have multiple panels, it opens outward, and within contemporary Indian art, you've had Ghulam Sheikh, of course, who's taken the Kavar idea and completely, genuinely contemporized it. And here you have, it would be traditional, it could be Ramayana, Mahabharata, or epic, or origin stories of the community, where the bards will travel with the box shrine, you take the deity out. And given that this is a Devi, possibly the stories are also to do with, her miracles or her stories. And all along, so here in the carvers, you have all of the inner walls painted profusely. And this is the outer walls and just the inner walls of the door. And you can see with what survives also such a really strong, this is a curatorial scroll painting style, right? So traditionally the scrolls, and which could be pretty long, it used to be good, sometimes 40, 50 meters. And then here transposed onto a box. So you have the Devi at the back, and now she's very much a more Vedic kind of Devi, because she's Durga with 10 arms, and so it's also very interesting. And then you have these Vedic rishis, so a much more folk kind of deity is absorbed. It's very interesting how this might have been used, and of course long out of use. So this is a fascinating object from the collection, and they have actually tried to restore it considerably, I've been told by the lovely conservator. So I'll leave you to come back and see this, because it needs sustained sort of looking. And now I'll sort of just go in order. The modern, so to speak, we open with P. Perumal. So P. Perumal is a major Madras art movement artist, trained in Government College of Arts, painter, teacher, and came from southern Tamil Nadu, and really drew on social, cultural life of the village he came from. So two things, of course, stand out. You see a lot of those social and cultural themes, but also the way he did the figure, the way he would do the limbs, he's very elongated, but also very pliant forms. You don't see any angularity in the limbs, and his rich use of black for skin color, which is both documents, yes, really reflective of what people, of course, really mostly look like, but also surprisingly unusual in Indian modernism or contemporary art. You don't see people at all using that so much. And, there's a variation. Many of you are artists, so you can see already some works are heavy on impasto, some he'll render more flatly. And in terms of thematics, you have, this is like the street performer. You have another one of these, it could be a performer, beggar figure passing through the city or the village. But a lot of religious and social customs as well, something he documented a lot in his work. So this is the Karagam festival from childhood, remembered, but also later in life, Perumal converted to Christianity. So there are a lot of works which are equally, they're full of devotional fervor, very much made as a believer. And so here you have a figure with a halo. And it's very interesting to see how it's conceived. It's a bit of a messiah speaking to the group, but it's very intimate. It's not a Sermon on the Mount, so the way it's Indianized. And the figures, you can clearly see Tamil Nadu. It's very much, very Virudnagaram. I'm coming here so you can see the work on this wall. This is like a particularly stunning work. So I was talking about, yes, social life, cultural life, but very much he was not only not blind to, but consciously drew attention to differences, social differences, hierarchies, discrimination, all of that. And of course, caste is deeply implicated in that. So this is a village panchayat scene, and it's called Panchayat. Many of us are familiar also with all the stories that have come out over the years and you can see what's happening here with, it's easy enough to guess. This is some decidedly caste-based, as has often happened. The punch leaders are standing. This whole thing also about who's clothed, who's not. There's a lot of hierarchy. It's a very interesting composition with all that's happening. That's all I will say because we are very short on time. We move to Veera Santanam, a younger, so to speak, but also Madras art movement artist. A very diverse set of works. I'm not sure if many of you would have seen something like this by Veera Santanam. This is in ink, and as much as it looks like a print, very, very intricate. The building up of the surface with very fine lines. You can come closer and see. And yes, with bondage and freedom from it. Veera Santanam is also, of course, was a major activist of the Tamil cause. I think he made these sketches which are there, which were used for the memorial for the, all the people killed in the Elam fight post-2000. The Elam, well, it's been a genocide, and that's the only word for it. Was very, very active in that. A lot of his works are political. It's not to say that this might necessarily refer to that, but really remarkable in the quality of the work. And you'll see through the modernists that we see now that are on view, a great deal of diversity, not just themes and styles, but just the treatment of the surface. This is G. Raman, artist also. I think he was born in the 40s, so he's very much plumb in the modernist movement period, but somebody who draws, like many other artists of this period did, on Tamil cultural traditions. There's use of textile. He builds up the surface very well. You can see and great use of line. Here, this one specifically on musicians, and you see the two Nadaswaram players. There's a sense of it's also very busy, but it's also decorative. And yet, moves in and out. You see a lot of color, very strong use of color, applied very boldly. And then you also see the figures through it. But great sort of ornamental kind of quality. And then, of course, here is the most remarkable Aram Paraniyappan. I'm sure many of you are very, very, very familiar. And for those who may not know, it's very difficult to talk about Paraniyappan in a very short time, so I can only kind of signpost a few things. So Paraniyappan grew up watching a lot of the World War II films and bombing of Germany, and in particular in the Reichstag building, which of course this is the restored one, which is now the big Parliament building in Berlin. But seeing the war films didn't lead to any obsession with violence, or instead was about it was the speed of the planes, of technology, and of how mesmerizing technology itself can be. And he says he lived with that. It also then, and great interest because of that in the aerial perspective with what you get from a plane. Then also therefore to do with interest in speed, movement, flight. And in '89, I think, he went to Berlin, which was his first visit. And then he walks through the streets of Berlin, and you can see in every image there's the Reichstag, that then this other part which was under construction where there were repairs happening. And he is now interested also, as I said, movement, and through his career, he's also a major and very important printmaker. He's possibly the only Indian printmaker skilled at the color viscosity process. Krishna Reddy, of course, as the pioneer, or W. Hayter was, but very few people practicing that. It's so difficult to pull off. And he's done a lot with the globe, with earth, like I said again, both aerial views, but also this work is very philosophical. He's interested in existence. And when you look at all of these things, you suddenly also become interested in time. Not time merely as mortality, but also very metaphysically, what is time? That's there a lot in Paraniyappan's work. So this series, this is a small set of works from a suite of about 40, and Dakshinachitra collection has 30 of these works. This was him moving through the space, and your own spatial understanding. Now the street is different, and how you see buildings. So each of these drawings emerge, and they're all time stamped. If you come closer, you'll see each are like maybe a couple of seconds apart, and they've been placed in order. And he views it like that. So he's presenting the narrative also. I will say this and move on to, we have a wall of the Madras art movement artists. First, of course, S.G. Vasudeva, first would be J. Sultan Ali, one of the founder members of the Cholamandal Artist Collective in Village. And actually, Vasudeva was the youngest member then. He was still Parnikar's student. Sultan Ali, an extremely interesting career with running away to art school, and it was not Tamil at all, came from Bombay, if I remember right. And later in life, moved to a lot of very totemic, tribal art that he actually wanted to draw on. He did go to Bastar. So it remains external in a way. It's not something that came from either his tradition or something he grew up watching, or some very fantastic beasts and beings. This is, of course, a woman here, and it's a very finely done drawing. This is an early work of Vasudev. He's, for those, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Vasudev's work, so all the things, the trees and vriksha, but he did start out as another regular art school student doing his share of nudes and sketches and drawings. So you have a couple here. It's, I don't think it's a charcoal, it is, says pencil. You can see the condition also and this is from '63 when he was still in college. This is, of course, the remarkable Alfonso Dors. A really incredible artist. This is a theme that's there a lot in his work, the way the lotus emerges, sometimes out of water, held. Very interesting with kinds of narratives that are suggested, and just lovely work, the use of colors here. And you will see, of course, in all the Madras Art Movement artists trained in Government College of Art in Madras, the phenomenal interest in linearity, in the line, that both creates form, and that's either building up the surface or creating volume. Above this is D. Venkatapati, also a Cholamandal artist. So some of these, of course, are Cholamandal artists. And this Woman and Bird was a bit of a series, reappears in many different ways. And you have this, like Sultan Ali, drawing on totemic kind of forms, also masks and things like that. He was also very interested in the bizarre, that was there a lot in his work. This, of course, A.P. Santanraj was a major teacher to many of the generation of both Douglas and Paraniyappan's generation of artists. Not much to say, of course you can see the use of color. And this woman, this very buxom woman, was there a lot in his work. This is Douglas. This is a relatively early work. A remarkable artist. I think everyone here knows his work. Very, very personal, in quite the quintessential modern artist sense of delve into self, identity, but also so much of his work is about, well, not just fragility, but just everything disintegrating of dystopia, really. And you see that also here with not just the form that's upside down. It's amazing what he does with the surface, the attacking of it sometimes, ripping. In this, you see this, the paint is used to. It's very interesting. You can just see it as texture, but it's somehow very emotional. The building up of it. That's Adivira Pandyan, perhaps one of the few, or if not only, abstractionist Madras art movement. I mean, one of the younger artists who recently passed, if I'm not wrong. And this is Surya Murthy, and this is an early work. This, of course, was an artist who was in Madras, and one of them who, like many of the others, drew on tradition. By that, it could be visual tradition, whether it was tantra or the local folk traditions, whether you look at whatever came out of, I mean, not so much as Tanjore as the classical art, but if you saw what you'll see there later, what would get printed in books, with woodcuts. You had a very clear folk form. You had the stories narrated. This is a little tantric with this seated figure, and you have all the chakras shown, but you also have this very busy thing with text in the way Panikkar, of course, most famously used, the use of writing, of literature, and just the building the whole surface with this. There's lots there with text, the tree, and serpent, and of course all of the sort of usual symbology. Very interesting artist, very prolific. And this wall ends with surprisingly a not only non-Madras art movement, non-Southern artist, but a modernist nonetheless, Haku Shah, who was from Gujarat, very instrumental was a mainly sculptor, very instrumental to setting up the Philadelphia Museum of Art Indian collection with Stella Kramrisch, some of the ancient and medieval. Haku Shah was invited here to run a workshop and for students, for artists, and as part of it, what he painted then has come to the collection. So I do want to pause for a moment to say that's also what the display also tries to capture, and I'm very interested in the collection building practices here, that they came a lot from artist camps, but also donations, because one doesn't even quite know how and why the shift to, or the interest in contemporary art. What Deborah Tyagarajan started, it says, of course, was to expand it, to not be limited just to, even though they began with craft and art. You all know the houses, that kind of a incredible project. And with that, we kind of move chronologically also to this really incredible work. We have the artist present. This is, of course, Miss Benita Perciel's work. It's a very early work, so I don't know if any of you have seen Benita's work from 2006, and there is a companion work, even in thematics, I think, which is in the collection, which was shown at the Madras Art Week. I don't know if any of you have caught that. I'm going to say very little about you, Benita, so that we will quickly finish, and I'd like you to then speak both to your work, to your practice. This, I said, is from 2006. Benita is, I think, one of our, without the fact that you are present here, I'm sure everyone agrees, is one of the most remarkable contemporary artists practicing today, with just this very intuitive use of material and very innovative use of material to create work which is extremely personal, should we say? I think that would be true. You could call it very autobiographical. Also brings in your, exploring faith, but the kinds of, it's not just materiality, because Benita is using oils and incense and extremely unusual material, which both not only is a great interest in material, they're very tactile. There's an invitation to the viewer to hear as well, and in later works, I think even recent works, something I saw last year, there's the seeds that you've used. So all of that I'll ask you to come back to speak to later. But here you can see this figure, this very winged kind of creature, and this building up of the whole surface of feathers. And in 2005-06, I think we've had few artists who were Um, I mean, contemporary artists who were either just doing installation work a lot, or lens-based practices, or were still very much, working on canvases with more conventional material. So this is also very exciting it I think helps sort of chart development of our artists too. This is a good 20-year period. It's a good time to, I think, take assessment. This is Masuram Ravikant. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his work. Hyderabad-based. I'll jump through. It's really quite striking. Really mocks this whole thing with royalty, royal figures. So this is, of course, one of the Holkars. And in other works, he's taken, historical photographs and then either hand paints them, Bone and Shepherd kind of images. This is called Royal Dictat. So I think it's punning somewhere on dictates, and some other works are on the gaze. This is Vijay Pichumani, remarkably large. And that's not a surprise with Vijay Pichumani. It's a woodcut, but the scale itself is really quite remarkable because very hard, as all of you know, to work with very large wood block and carve it. You could do that. I do want you to see this is incredible. This is a Rajendran who, there's a whole history, but I will just very quickly say that this came out of Dakshinachitra's own invitation to the Irula community because there was no known visual tradition, and this artist alone produced like the most number of works. So had never painted before, but you can see so much captured about Irula way of life. Hello. And so these are works from that. That's Jahangir Jani, very recognizable with the kind of work he has continued to do. This is M. Natesh. This is a young artist also from Madurai. This is Cynthia Prabhakar, for those of you who this is a terribly, let's run through it kind of talk just this moment. This is Guru Siddhappa, who's from Bangalore. Cynthia Prabhakar, of course, is a Chennai-based artist. And that is, of course, B.O. Shailesh, who's originally from Karnataka, who's a Cholamandal-based artist, very interested in, I think, the yogic body and yoga forms. Remarkable work. I'm going to take you inside. There's a sculpture there as well, just so that it shouldn't be that you've not seen the room. 45, Anita? I'm hoping you all can come back and see the show at some length. So here we begin with some of our major known Adivasi artists. Thank you. You have, of course, Bhuribai with Bhil. You have Ram Singh Urveti, Gond artist. And while this is not a Mashe, Jigya Mashe, who was really instrumental in contemporizing Varli, this is another young Varli artist. And travel art has always been very, very contemporary, very vibrant. This work is actually really remarkable because it also now steps away from, it's not just animal nature figures, which has happened a lot. It's actually called globalization. So I'll invite you to come see the work closer. Here we have a Santali painting. This is from the 1950s or so. And this is a remarkable Patachitra. It's not, it is from early to mid 20th century. It is not on cloth as the original Patachitras used to be from Bengal. It's on paper, but this vertical format is really very surprising and unusual. This is Manasa's story, the snake goddess. It's a huge other wonderful story, and this whole completely, opposite of both our Vedic big Hindu pantheon. She's a snake goddess who then, the story is about how she demands to be treated as a legitimate deity and actually kills somebody who then of course becomes a devotee, kills, and that's the wife taking his body across. So it's very interesting how the story is developed. Maybe there's some Satyavan Savitri thing happening, which is very, mainstream Hinduism. By them is this really remarkable, very old Kalamkari work. And in as much as Kalamkari is very contemporary, continues to be made and is very much active. And early work in such a state of preserve is one rarer, but also very interesting with the use of dye. I have personally not seen such a lot of use of black. Really very lovely with this beautiful tree of life, and then you have all kinds of animals and birds. Another artist who's doing this is not on fabric, neither is that, but you can clearly get a sense of fabric with the kanta, like running stitch, or the way small strokes are building up the surface. This is really remarkable. This is Chandra Morkonda, for anyone familiar with the artist, who comes from a weaver community, trained in Hyderabad. I think Shantiniketan and then Hyderabad. And this is called the weaver colony. And so you have, of course, like a representative man, woman, and then you have the life of the colony, engaged in dyeing. There's a loom. It's really remarkable. The houses. And so they also together just to think of textile, which is that contemporary imagination obviously continues to engage with it. Some artists who are who just making extremely tactile works, which you can't call them sculpture. They're not in the round, and we call them wall installations or anything at all, but just use of material. This is Vijay Pichumani. This is K. Velusamy, who is a Madurai-based artist. I'm hugely thankful to Dakshinachitra for introducing me to so many non-Chennai Tamil Nadu artists, actually. Also wider South India. That I think was Vijay Kumar, but I haven't seen other works. So this might actually interest you a lot, Vinita, which is the way the pigment is applied, I think, on a wood base. These are some works which are from the first camp, actually 2006. So I'm wondering if you're even familiar. So Jita Shankar from Trivandrum, and it's called Shurpanakha, and once you have the title, it's very clear what's happening. But by it this is Tolu Bomalatlu, which is the shadow puppetry from Andhra. And while you normally see the shadow puppet play, the shadow puppets are on view. It's exquisite how they're made. Not just the intricacies, the number of parts that are also put together, because everything has to move but not fall apart. So there's a Rama and a Sita. You also have a Ramayana story panel. This we couldn't light, I'm afraid, but also these are perforated very minutely, so that, because they are backlit, so that you can get the full form. I'll complete this and come to these. This is Ramachandran, the idea also was just that you had artists who are drawing on myth, on epic. So this is the Kiratarjunyam, the Shiva Arjuna big battle, where the boar comes, and the whole is very gory fight, actually. Bodhiselvam, who does a lot with Buddhist themes, and in the middle you have a really remarkable set of sculptures, terracotta by T.R.P. Mukaya. Many of you might be familiar with him. He was also a painter, and the museum has an amazing collection of works. Just see the plasticity that's achieved of the clay. You will see a lot of sort of singing, dancing works as well, of group of figures, but they're not all celebratory. There's a great deal of both disquiet, and if you look at that work there, howling protest and lament. It's remarkable how an artist can capture this with small format with just clay, with it also not disintegrating, because he's making, which I've seen, which is rarer, he's making multiple figures that are joined, and then they are baked together. So it's also technically very clearly very prowess is great. This is, of course, a remarkable work, again, a Jallikat bull. This is not Mughaya. Of contemporary, actually, heads, Theyyam painted faces of heads. So while they draw on the Theyyam traditional actual paintings, the faces, these are just made in wood, and they've become decor items. So it's interesting given that it's such a heavily, strictly ritual context in which Theyyam or the Bhuta Aradhana in Southern Karnataka, Northern Kerala and Southern Karnataka appear. This continues into the Tanjore paintings, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with. But do you want me to? And we have here Nagendra Babu, who, this is just one of the archways of the houses this is just from Chettinad, and he's made a series of drawings of how intricate those house archways are, almost like gopurams. So you have a contemporary artist, but a lot of the forms are or surviving architecture is old. And these are some remarkable woodcuts that I was mentioning earlier, both secular and religious, a very small showcase of from quite a large collection of woodcuts. You have Agastya, the quintessential Tamil story of the Agastya Muni drinking up the ocean, and so you have, it's very sweetly done with all the fish going into his mouth, and then of course you have Shiva worship, or you have a Shaivite king at rest. And then this continues with some contemporary artists. This is also a work from, I would imagine Benita might recognize it. It's also from the 2006 artist camp. So this is a Bangalore-based artist, at least then it was Bangalore-based Rupashri. And this is K.K. Segar. This is very much a Tamil Nadu artist. Just very interesting, the kinds of layers of transparency this particular artist achieves. You can see there are layers and layers of just narrative. This is a Swedish artist. This was also just to showcase some of the diversity. They do have some international artists as well in the collection. This is early, I think from the same camp, 2006. It's called Digital Boy, and the kinds of anxieties that 2006 would have at that time engendered. Moving here to this, my possibly most favorite artist here, M.G. Rafiq from Madurai, works with collage. And this is Rajshekhar Rao from Hyderabad, and to my knowledge, I think the only contemporary artist working with glass, the reverse glass painting tradition. So, but he uses acrylic sheet, doesn't use glass. So of course you're painting reverse, and then he has a sheet of paper. So also wanted it to have a bit of some kind of a juxtaposing from the Tanjore style, which is reverse glass painting, and but you have a contemporary artist. Who else? He did do some. That's right. You're right. Correct. I'd forgotten. This is Manish Modi, very much still an active artist, so non-southern, but thanks to the camps. So there's a small smattering of non-southern artists. Manish Modi continues to use the idea of the news a lot, and in the early years, the newspaper itself. So this is representative of that. So you have a bottle wrapped up in a Gujarati newspaper. This is Akhilesh, again I'm sure familiar to you all, Bhopal-based artist. These are of course, we end back with southern artists. This is Ilayaraja and Yuvaraj, and this is Maraduramu. I don't know about the artist, it was a remarkable work set during the lockdown. You have animals wearing masks and things. And we'll just, but the Mukaya is something I would urge, even in the 5 minutes that we have left, before of course I hand it over to Benita, that you all look at. You could turn it around.
Actually, I worked 3 works in that workshop, and 2 more paperwork and an installation. So it's a kind of work together. They speak themselves, and also since you're talking about the material, this material was given to me by Asma. She got a paper. Yeah. Asma got a paper book for her daughter, and she was not using it. I was using a lot of paperwork, so Asma said, she's not using, can you use it? So the material just arrived me like that. So that's the first time I'm using, because I was using a lot of tracing paper. That's what Asma kind of connected. So this is fascinating because I don't like to erase drawings underneath. So I always want it to be visible. Whatever I scratch underneath, it has to be visible. So then it was kind of correct given material for you, because for you it's not like I'm just talking about material so much because for me it is the core of the work, like it's the soul of the work. So when I found this paper, it was like, for me it was more like breathing, because most of the time I kind of stuck in between when I do the process, because sometimes you don't want to lie in the process. It has to be itself, like, so when you don't want it to forcefully change or arrest the quality of the whatever we are speaking as well. So in that way it kind of helped me, and I usually work with the material which has its own quality, and I don't want it to change the quality of look something else. It has to be in the process, and always it is not for me. I keep working. It's not like you don't believe, but I keep working. I have this habit of rework, because that's how the process happens. So for me, work doesn't end in one piece. Even if you give me this, after 5 years, I'll start working with that. So that's how I kind of have conversation within my work itself. So that's the kind of process I'm believing. And also I like to explore the minimal material to have dialogue with myself itself, with the transfer of the work. So it's always exploring with the possibilities, and because I start with some scratch, but I don't plan the work as such, like, I don't plan. So it's always evolving. So I work together simultaneously, like 3 or 4 works, and then build work together. So that's how, and that's what, like, this work and other work with the seed which I collected from the Dakshinachitra itself, and then I worked. So yeah. So it was more like exploring the space itself in that way. So.
That seed, no?
Yes, and also I use certain material which speaks by themselves. It ages along with the material, so it is. Whenever you see them, they transform. So that's how you learn as well in certain sense.
Like your work in the Biennale now also, for the time being.
Yes.
It's a little like Ghana's with the camphor and how it keeps changing. But much faster.
Not as dramatic.
Not that's much faster. Like a few weeks, it's growing. It's engaging constantly also with left to air also. This is the covered work.
Yes. So certain works I don't give. I just keep it with me. Especially the one which I started working with the incense. I still have them, so that I want to see how they transform over the time, because.
They're never quite done, no?
Yeah.
So is it also very slow?
Yeah, the process is very slow, so it really takes time, and it really reacts with the time and the climate as well. So you have to understand the sensibility of the time what you're working with as well, with the material. So.
And in the same way you use found material, is it a similar kind of?
Found material, I always use them as a reference material, because for me, I talk about time and the usage. So I always restore them most of the time. I puzzle them, and then again I put it together how it was. So that's a kind of exercise I do myself. So the other thing which also stimulates me to work towards certain material. So.
And you really get to know material there.
Yes, yeah. So, and I don't just collect all the found object. Whatever speaks to me, I just there's some kind of connection is there in certain sense. Some are given to you, or some you take them with you.
Thank you to all of you. I'm sorry it was so rushed, because we started now at 4:30. If for anyone who can stay, you're welcome to. We open for half an hour more easily.
We open till 7 today.
Oh, and I'm happy to stay a little bit, especially for you all who came a little bit later. But thank you very much.